Hey fellow fishing fanatic, so you just pulled up to your favorite spot, but it looks like it's chocolate milk. You just had a huge rain and it washed a bunch of mud into this perfect spot. Well, don't turn around, don't go home. It's actually okay to fish. Now there's some things you might need to change up in your technique and lure selection and color selection, but I'm here to help, so let's get started. My name is Wesley Littlefield with anglers.com, and I grew up fishing muddy water. My ponds that I fished were farm ponds with muddy, silty bottoms, so anytime we got any kind of wind or rain, it stirred the ponds up and they look like chocolate milk. And then my local lake that I live just a few miles from, it always looks like chocolate milk, except for usually during the winter. Like right now, it clears up a little bit, but generally, it's really dirty water. So how do you catch bass in these conditions? Well, number one is lure selection. And for me personally, I'm gonna go with lures with lots of vibration. So I'm talking crankbaits, I'm talking spinner baits, and I'm talking chatterbaits. Those three right there are going to be my go-to lures for muddy water. Now, generally, what colors am I gonna have them in? I'm gonna be at opposite ends of the spectrum, kind of on what the fish really want. So I'm gonna fish black and blues, really dark colors, because these dark colors actually silhouette very well in dark chocolate brown colored water. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, from black and blues and even purples, I'll mix purples in there too. Then I'll switch to like whites and chartreuses, really bright poppy colors to help stand out and contrast against that brown colored. So, you know, think of, you've got a brown background, you want something really bright in front of it, hence chartreuse, and there you go. Now, once again, these are gonna be on very big, bulky, lots of vibration kind of lures. So along with the bright colors that I'm gonna use, since it's muddy and since the fish are relying more on either their lateral line, which is how they detect the vibrations, or their nose less than their eyes, I might even add a little bit of scent to my lures just to help change it up a little bit. I usually use garlic scents, but there's a few other scents out there you can test out. I don't have any recommendations. Nobody sponsors me to say, hey, try our scent. So go test out what you think you like best. I know a buddy who makes baits of mine. He likes garlic scent, and I've caught a lot of fish using his baits with garlic scent. So it's worth checking out, especially when that water the fish cannot see in that water. It's really great to just go ahead, put a little bit of scent on there, and a little bit will go a long way, I promise. The third tip I've got for you is to actually find the warmest water. So if you're fishing cold, muddy water, it just increases the difficulty exponentially. If you want to find the warmest water, and typically that's going to be really shallow. Generally, when this water turns muddy, you're going to go find, you know, foot, 2 foot, maybe 3 foot tops where that sun can beat down on it and heat that water up a lot quicker. If you're in a boat, you'll see that you can actually, you know, have a big difference between fishing in 2 foot of chocolate milk water and then going out a little bit deeper into the 10, 12 foot. It could be 3 or 4 or 5 degrees difference, and that's all it takes to get those bass hungry and feeding. Along with going shallow, it's time to find some structure. So while you're shallow, find, you know, lay downs, find standing timber, find buckbrush, find grass mat, you know, whatever it is, find that structure, because those bass are going to just suck up so tight to it. You're gonna have to cast your lure right in front of it. I mean, just right on top of that fish in order to get them to strike. Because once again, they're struggling to see, they're a little bit disoriented. So when they have this cover to relate to, they're like, oh, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm gonna stay until it clears up. And the last tip that I'm gonna talk about, which is kind of counterproductive to one of my other tips, but I promise it makes sense, and that's actually fish near a deep spot. So if you're fishing in a pond, typically the deepest spot's gonna be in the middle or up against the dam, and then there might be a flat out there. Well, you want to fish near that transition area or that deep spot. This just helps you get close to where the fish feel most comfortable. So the fish are gonna move shallow to feed in that warmer water, but then if they feel any kind of threat, they're gonna move back deep. And that's why you want to fish near that deep spot, because they're not going to venture very far from that deep spot. So even though you might be fishing a big wide flat that's 2 foot deep, if there's no structure, no cover, and there's not any deep water nearby, more than likely there's not going to be that many fish nearby. Not saying it's impossible, just saying more than likely there's not going to be. Now when you implement these muddy water bass fishing tips, you'll no longer have to fret when you pull up to your favorite spot and it just looks like somebody dumped a bunch of chocolate milk into the water. If you're still struggling with lure selection, we've actually got a cheat sheet down in the description below you can click on, absolutely free. All you gotta do is plug in your email address and we'll send it right to you. I almost said ship it right to you, but we'll actually send it through email right to you. I take a very deep dive into the color selection in this video right below me for muddy water specifically. So if that's what you're most concerned about is color selection, and believe me, it's very important, check out the video down below me. Until then, I want you to always remember that education like this is important, but fishing is essential. So I'm gonna go try and catch some fish.